Good evening, East Hampton Planning Board. We're live. You're being recorded. We're streaming to YouTube. You may start your meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Are we on LTV as well? Live?
Yes, you're live on 22.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Planning Board meeting of August 23rd, 2023. We have, tonight we are initiating a slight change in the way in which we do things. Public hearings previously had been held at 7 o'clock or as soon thereafter as the public could be heard. But we've decided to make the public hearings the first matter on our agenda so that we don't have to do a little bit of fancy dancing sometimes to get to that 7 o'clock hour or not exceed it by very much. We're also going to be, I suppose, we have, we need to make clear that members who are on the board who need to recuse themselves will be recusing themselves at this time. So,
Public hearing number recused.
okay. So, ordinarily, Member Parsons would be reading this in, but we're going to, Member Parsons is on LTV there, and it'll be easier if I do it. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board at Town Hall 159 Pantago Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, at 6:30 p.m., or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of 219/221 Pantago Road site plan to facilitate several site improvements and a lot merger at 219 and 221 Pantago Road. The proposed project involves demolition of the existing structure at 219 Pantago Road, followed by construction of a new two-story structure with 1,333 square foot basement utilized for storage, a 1,446 square foot first floor with staff break room, new back of house office space, and relocated, pardon me, baking kitchen, and 1,194 square foot second floor, 3-bedroom apartment to provide staff housing. The proposed building addition would be 25 feet 1 inch in height and function as an addition to the existing Carissa's restaurant. Demolition of an existing shed currently located in the 219 property's eastern side yard setback is also proposed. Additional site improvements include a reconfigured parking area and enhances landscaping, stormwater drainage, and sanitary management facilities. The property contains 16,396 square feet, 0.376 of an acre, and is located on the north side of Pantago Road, East Hampton, and is situate in the Neighborhood Business NB zoning district, as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel number 300-188-1-11, 13.1. Subject application is classified as an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128 Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A proposed plan by George Walbridge Surveyors, PC, dated revised October 17, 2022. A set of plans prepared by Alexander Crewley Architect, dated received December 21st, 2022, including existing site plan A0.0, site plan A0.1, zoning analysis A0.2, existing plan A1.0, demolition plan A1.1, basement plan A1.2, ground floor plan A1.3, second floor plan A1.4, north-south elevations A2.0, east-west elevations A2.1, a set of plans prepared by D.B. Bennett PEPC, dated revised April 24th, 2023, including sanitary plan C1 and sanitary detail C2, and a landscape plan L1, prepared by Whitmore's, dated revised February 6th, 2023, are available for inspection at the Planning Board offices, 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held live and in person by the Planning Board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing, and will be televised by local TV, LTV Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, https://www.ltveh.org. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person or by agent or by attorney or by live call into the live stream or by written comment addressed to the planning board, 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937. Comments may also be submitted to the planning board by mail to planningboard@ehamptonnewyork.gov. All comments must be received by the planning board by the date and time of the public hearing. Dated July 26, 2023, Samuel Kramer, Chairman. Do we have jurisdiction?
Yes, we do. I reviewed the affidavit of service and posting, and it does appear that there was proper notice, and you do therefore have jurisdiction.
A good thing. Okay. Now I have to remember what goes next. What goes next is Tina.
Thanks, Sam. I have the site plan up, just overview. I think your project description was very thorough in the notice. The proposed application is demolishing the existing building on the site and constructing an addition to Chris's Restaurant. Since the last time the planning board saw this application, they have been to the zoning board of appeals, who granted the 3 variances the application needed to proceed as proposed to the board. Those 3 variances were one for the pyramid law. The second was for side yard setback of the western side yard. And the third was to allow a 3-bedroom apartment in the affordable apartment as opposed to 2 that are permitted by code. Those were all granted in July 27th. The determination is dated. And Suffolk County Planning Commission was also coordinated with for the site plan. They determined it was a matter of local jurisdiction with no further comment.
Very good. Okay, going to put it open to the members of the public. Anybody who wishes to speak, I request that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, fewer. Also, after everybody's had an opportunity to speak, and that includes the folks who might be calling in, then anybody who wishes to speak again will be an additional 3-minute segment. So with that, is there anybody who wishes to speak with respect to this application? Please step up and let us have your full name and your address. Please spell your last name. And I'll start the 3 minutes after you spell your last name.
My name is Lorraine Bonaventura. I live at 6 Spring Close Lane, East Hampton. I frequent Carissa's. So I'm not.
I need you to spell, I'm sorry, could you spell your last name, please?
Bonaventura.
Thank you very much. Go right ahead.
Not opposed to the application, but I do think in considering the application, it shouldn't be just as an isolated one application, because there's a lot of things that are beginning to impact this entire neighborhood business zone, which is also a residential area, from all the way from leaving the village and then continuing on to Amagansett, because there will be, as we know, 16 new houses, affordable houses. There's an intersection of Hampton and 27. It's already very busy. There's already parking issues every day of the summer between Bostwick's and Moby's. I think that in considering this application and the affordable housing and possibly what happens with the Stern lot and other businesses, you should consider the character going from East Hampton to Amagansett and continue to monitor that, but also to include the state in the planning if there needs to be a traffic light at Spring Close Highway, which has now become a very busy kind of throughway between Springs Fireplace Road, Town Lane, and 27. So those are my comments that I'm about this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to be heard with respect to this application?
We do have a caller on the line.
We have someone on the line?
Yes, we do. I'll put him through.
If you could open it up. Caller?
Hi, good evening, Chairman Kramer. It's Jane, Jaine, Meering, Mehring, 32 Ocean Lane in Amagansett.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, and I will be brief. I think you're used to hearing me wear out the carpet at your podium in front of esteemed board members to be more on the negative side or have concerns about applications, but I thought it was fair to come and speak in support of this application. When I first learned about it, I was a little bit, skeptical, but as I've watched the proceedings in front of your board, in front of the zoning board, and done my research, I'm supportive really for two reasons relative to other applications where I've been more active and negative. Number one is this is an existing established business that already has a clientele, already has a full employment suite, and that there will not be incremental creation of more need for employees that we're hard pressed to find. It won't compete with other businesses for employees, and so the affordable housing unit will, I think, actually do something even small to abate rather than create more affordable housing crisis. And number two, with respect to parking, I think, it doesn't solve all the issues. As I've listened to the narrative in various settings in public, the applicant has worked hard to try and work and collaborate with surrounding businesses to no avail. So this does add some significant parking, and I think that will alleviate some of the congestion that spills out onto 27 that perhaps is the concern of the last speaker. And as we know, the applicant has also relinquished, I believe, 6 seats to address some of the concerns about septic and also, busyness at the property. So those are my only comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the public? And LTV, are there any other callers online?
We have no more callers at this time.
Very good. In that case, Member Parsons, you there, Randy?
Yes.
Can you make a motion, please?
Okay. I make a motion that we close the public hearing for 203 Pentago Road. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. We close it 219 and 221 Pentago Road, Carissa.
I'm sure 203 is happy to hear that they're not being closed down. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0 with 1 recused. Okay, public hearing is closed. We'll have a wrap-up memo prepared at some point in the coming future, and then we'll take it up again. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so now we are moving, if you see member Ian call the people outside, just let them know to come back in. Thanks. They were deputized. Okay. All right, we have 3 matters on for work session, subdivision, and site plan review. We did have a preliminary review also scheduled, but that, I hope you all got the note, was withdrawn by the applicant. That application, that preliminary is completely withdrawn, correct?
Yes.
Very good.
Completely withdrawn.
Completely withdrawn, not adjourned, completely withdrawn.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll begin with 395 Panago Road final. Member Parsons, you've got this one and the next one, just to keep you on your toes. You're not gonna have to do any reading, but they're yours. And is the applicant on 395? You can see the applicant right there. Okay. Go right ahead.
Thanks, Sam. This is an application for final subdivision, 395, and we discussed this site several times in the last few weeks. This is an application to subdivide a roughly 12-acre parcel into 16 single-family residential lots for the purposes of providing affordable housing. reserve areas of open space, which were purchased through the Community Preservation Fund, which will also be created and dedicated to the town of East Hampton as part of this action. The subject parcels within the East Hampton School District and Zone A5 within affordable housing overlay. The preliminary subdivision was recently approved by the planning board, and there were several issues that were discussed but held open for further consideration as part of the final subdivision process. So that is what the comment memo focuses on this evening. Like the rest of the subdivision final requirements aren't really ready for discussion now. This is more like the overview of the planning issues associated with some of the things we held. So the small list of planning considerations includes the need for street trees and or mature tree preservation. During the preliminary subdivision review, both the planning department and we got public comments with respect to preservation of mature trees being considered for, mapping and preservation during the subdivision process. And at that time, the applicant also noted it's appropriate to consider the mature forest on site. At this time, we really need to discuss what the details of that should be. If anything, I'll note that the site preservation is already at about 48.89% based on the reserve areas and the small size of the lots and the affordable housing overlay. But at this time, if we do want to see preservation, we should discuss exactly what's practical and what that will look like with respect to moving forward with the final plan. The next issue is the need for sidewalks. During public comments, it was noted that sidewalks should be provided. We're aware that the town board has indicated that sidewalks are not preferred based on the suburban aesthetic they can apply to an area. The applicant, the Housing and Preservation Office has suggested that we consider wide paved shoulders as an alternative, maybe in keeping with the character, but also providing a bit wider area to accommodate pedestrians, which can be a challenge in the town, as we all know. Then we'll talk a little bit about if we need any other construction controls aside from the SWIP. It's looking like the SWIP is going to cover everything, and they're usually very comprehensive, but we should still make sure that the planning board's confident that environmental controls are going to be keeping with their expectations. The northern long-eared bat presence, we did talk about this quite a bit during the preliminary subdivision. Our understanding currently is that as long as we keep to the clearing windows provided in the DEC guidance with respect to the preservation of the species, there's no concerns because the bats will not be on site. And we do plan to just confirm that with DEC during the final process to ensure that we're doing everything necessary to protect the species. It's recently been listed as endangered up from threatened. Its previous designation is threatened. And then the reserve area access, the planning board has an opportunity this evening to opine on their hopes for the reserve area in terms of use. The applicant has added to the site the pedestrian access through lot 7 here that I'm shaking my arrow at to provide kind of resident access to the reserve area in the back. So if the planning board has considerations of trails connections, these are the things we should talk about in that area. And then just quickly, I'm noting there's a few elements from the necessary items for final subdivisions that we don't have. And one of the big things that's going on now is the work on DOT comments with respect to roadway connections and such. So that will continue during the final process. But the fire marshal and fire department have both approved the project. So that basically concludes the comments. We should talk about trees, sidewalks, reserve area, and bats. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The applicant is to be heard.
Sure. Hi, Eric Shantz, Director of Housing. So as Tina outlined, I think there are 5 issues to discuss. One being street trees and mature trees and their preservation throughout the subdivision. The second being sidewalks, the need for them. Third being stormwater protocol. Fourth being the northern long-eared bat or any other protected species. And then the fifth being the reserved area access and trails, basically just how the board wants to set that up. There was discussion of having a provision for a trail in the front reserved area. Obviously, we added on lot 7 or 8, 7, the pedestrian access easement across the flag of that lot. So basically, those are the 5 topics. I don't know if the board wants to go one by one, topic by topic, or if you want me to just give my opinion on each one.
Why don't you go through that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Member Parsons, and he'll report, and then we can discuss.
Sure. So with the street trees and mature trees, we really think there's 2 things you can do as far as street trees go. One would be just having us identify the area where the road is going to go in, and then in the margins that would not need to be cleared for the pavement, basically just marking that off with project limiting fencing so that when we build the road, we don't knock down the existing trees. Another option is to stake the area of the roadway before any clearing or anything is done, and have, I suppose, a member of the board or the planning department go to the site so that they'll know, they can see those stakes and see where the road is going to go before any clearing is done, and mark off the trees that they want preserved. We'll mark them and preserve them. So I see that as 2 options of preserving trees within the road right-of-way. With regard to, I will say too, I did hear some comments from the public about mature trees throughout the subdivision. I've been there a few times. I didn't notice any offhand that were particularly unique or not ornamental plantings, but it's something that the board may wish to discuss as well. So moving on to the second topic, sidewalks. We don't feel that any sidewalks are needed. This road is going to have to be a little bit wider than the normal road within a subdivision at 26 feet. Normally the maximum is 24 feet. When I say 26, I mean the actual asphalt pavement will be 26 feet. The lanes themselves take up 20 feet. So you'd have 3 feet on each side of asphalt on the shoulder side of the white line. We feel that's adequate. I would mention, I think building sidewalks here makes it look suburban. It's not what we're looking for in a 16-lot subdivision. I will point out of the 4 major developments, affordable housing developments that the town has done, Manor House is the only one that has sidewalks. There's discontinuous sidewalks from the parking areas to the units themselves. So there's not a sidewalk that goes up the road that goes into that development, which looks a lot like this, where it's basically a cul-de-sac that ends. There are no sidewalks throughout the site. There are, again, sidewalks from the parking areas to the units. Green Hollow Woods, which is our, second largest development, is single-family lots. There are no sidewalks in that development. Whalebone Woods, which is the largest that we have, there are no sidewalks in that development. And Commercial Heights, which most people don't know it by that name, but it's basically Stewart's Lane, which is just south of the landfill, the East Hampton landfill. That has no sidewalks, so we don't feel they're necessary. With regard to the stormwater protocol, very simply, we submitted a stormwater pollution prevention plan to the DEC. That has been reviewed or is pending review. Drew Bennett is the town's consulting engineer that's working on that. But basically, so it's sort of within their jurisdiction and being reviewed. But if there's anything additional as far as stormwater protection during construction that the board wants to see, just let us know. We'll discuss it. We'll incorporate it into the plan. That plan does have most of the standard measures that you'd have: straw bales at the road, project limiting fencing throughout. Straw bales are also going to be required by the New York State DOT to prevent any runoff onto the state highway. So that's with regard to stormwater. That was the third point. Fourth topic is the northern long-eared bat. As Tina said, we at this point just plan to comply with any protocols or restrictions, windows on clearing. That's my understanding right now, is that is the only policy that's been laid out for us. As you know, in October, they were deemed a federally endangered species, the northern long-eared bat. If there is new protocol that's adopted, it's not a question. We must follow it. It's federal law. So My understanding is that it's just a clearing window. If anything else comes up, we will abide by it. And then the fifth and final topic is really just the reserved areas and access trails. Again, standard wording for reserved areas is no disturbance whatsoever to remain in its natural state. The board has had conversations about having in the wording a provision for a trail link from the road through the front reserved area to the flag strip to the back CPF portion. You should just have that discussion about how you want to see that be used, what provisions. Again, the pedestrian access easement to the rear, is it only going to be for the residents of the subdivision? It can only be for the residents of the subdivision. That was clarified by the town attorney's office by John Jelnicki, as long as you have, and it's drawn into the design of a public access point for that CPF property, which we have via the flag strip, you have that discretion. So for the most part, I'm here to answer any questions. I anticipate you will about sidewalks and street trees and things like that. But for the remainder of the issues, we're just here to listen. I'll take notes, and in particular as pertains to the reserved area and the access easements, I'll take notes and we'll prepare the documents. We'll submit drafts to you with whatever provisions you want for your future review.
Can you clarify something?
Yeah.
So it was your comment about access. So you said that it can be only for residents, but provided that there is access from the road?
Yeah, my understanding of it, I don't know the exact.
For the public.
Yeah, exactly.
He's talking about the back.
For the public.
No, I
the one on the
understand,
side.
I understand. But what would the point of public access be if you're deeming the 5-acre lot for?
What I mean is if.
Oh, I'm sorry, just the 10-foot.
Yeah, if that flag didn't exist and we bought this portion with CPF property with public taxes, you need to provide a provision for the public to access it. So if there was no flag.
I see, I misunderstood what you
Had that
said.
as access.
I get it.
It couldn't be restricted.
I get
But you do have a public access.
I get it.
But the little one up on the top, north end, that one somehow can be restricted to just people who reside in the cul-de-sac.
And that's your prerogative. Again, I don't feel that it's necessary, but it's on the map, so you should just have a discussion about what that easement is going to be, who's going to be allowed to use it, what provisions are going to be entailed.
Does the housing office have any anticipation as to like who's going to be there? Is it going to be families, retirees? Do you have any idea?
Well, I mean,
Or can you not have an idea at this point?
yeah, I mean, blowing out way far, the Fair Housing Act says that you can't deny housing opportunities based on, numerous factors. I mean, the town from day one has wanted this to be community housing that was available to working people. This is something where the placement, as the planning board, you're creating this subdivision, you're creating the lots, but the placement is going to fall within the purview and the jurisdiction of the town board through the home ownership program and through, whatever provisions they put in and whatever special qualifications they can put on income qualification.
So the town will ultimately set the standards pursuant to which the lots will be purchased and the houses will be built,
That's correct.
Okay.
And that conversation is coming up soon.
but not before us. That's
Yeah,
a town board.
Yeah, the planning board has no purview over who gets put in any of these homes. That's the town board.
The small things.
One other point of clarification, I don't mean to jump in front of our Parsons for sure, but you mentioned the road was wider than normal.
Yes.
Is that in lieu of having sidewalks, or even if we wanted to have sidewalks, but it still have to be wide?
It has to be wider than normal. It is a cul-de-sac that terminates in a fire hydrant. Our engineer and the fire marshal verified that under state fire code, that the improved width has to be 26 feet. In our code, you have the option for a standard road width, which is 24 feet of improved asphalt, or a lane, which is 20, which is very narrow. That's basically the minimum that you need of dimensions of lanes of asphalt. So basically, a lane that just drops off the asphalt. In this case, we have to do 26 feet, which is 1 foot on each side wider of asphalt than under the code. But again, the road right-of-way has to also be 50 feet. So you have 24 feet. You have 12 feet on each side that is going to be not asphalt, not improved in any way. And under this design, if we have the 26 feet that's improved and 20-foot lanes, you have 3 feet of asphalt on the side of the stripe where people can walk up and down the road. And again, this is a 16-lot cul-de-sac. We don't, there will be no through traffic, and we don't expect significant traffic that's going to make that a problem.
So there'll be a white stripe running the entire length of the cul-de-sac,
Yeah, exactly.
up, down,
And then 3 feet of asphalt if you want to walk on or step off,
Yeah. Eric, one of Sam's question about, who's going to move in here. My understanding is this is not a senior citizen project.
No.
And that we should expect that there's going to be some families, maybe mostly families with children of various ages. Is that fair? Or?
Yeah, I would like to see as many people who need affordable housing as possible get in there. So yes, we anticipate that these will be working families with kids running around and playing.
Okay, it goes to the sidewalk discussion.
Randy, why don't you, let me just make sure nobody else on the board has anything they want to ask of Eric or of Tina. So Randy, why don't you take over and start the conversation?
Okay, well, I think it looks great. And I'll just say, in the past, I worked on a number of the housing projects, and Windmill 2, for example, there was a real effort there on the part of the board, of the nonprofit board, that actually was the owner developer, to make the development as attractive and well-designed as possible. And so that it, improves the quality of life and it lasts for a long time. So anyway, with that in mind, as Eric said, the paper right of way has to be 50 feet and the pavement is 26. So as Eric said, we have 12 feet of unimproved right of way on both sides of this street. So I don't want to see a sidewalk that is like a straight line and cuts trees down, but I'm wondering if we could do a path, a footpath that kind of weaves through any large trees on either one side or both sides of the street. And as far as the trees go, I think it's important for us to try to keep any of the big trees. We can discuss with the board, how big. Basically, a caliper is a diameter of the tree trunk. And if you think about certainly a 6-inch tree, in my view, is something worth us knowing about, probably marking all the trees that are 6 inches or more caliper, and then perhaps showing a sidewalk. I don't care if it's a sketch, not a sidewalk, but a path, a footpath, maybe a path that could handle a bicycle. In other words, you could have like a curving asphalt or some other, even a dirt path. I mean, most of the trails in town are dirt. People ride bikes on them and they walk on them, they ride horses on them. I don't know how much improvement we need to make to a footpath, but so I don't see it as a suburban sidewalk. I see it as a footpath meandering through the trees, again, on one or both sides. And I think we should try to mark all the trees 6 inches or greater caliper and try to protect them in a reasonable way. Obviously, if somebody has to cut down the trees to build their house, but for example, in the reserved area, we don't need to mark the trees in the reserved areas because they're not going to get cut down. But in the right of way outside the paved area, I think we should mark the trees. And in the lots, that's trickier. But probably in that flag access. So if we mark the big trees in the flag access going to the reserved area, and we mark them in the right of way of the main road. And I don't know, I don't think we can really, the people that are in the lots, if big trees are in the yard setbacks, I mean, I think it'd be good if we encouraged people not to cut them down. And then Eric said there is also a clearing restriction. So that might be enough in the lots. I'm just sort of thinking out loud. So let me go down further. My notes here. I had a question about the bats. Where do the bats hibernate?
Is that for me? I don't know.
Anybody?
I assume that they leave. I mean, that's why it's okay to do the
Off-site,
cutting. They don't stay in these cold climates.
Leave where? I don't understand.
They leave town for the
Florida?
winter.
They leave the
A
site.
lot of people choose that in New York.
They migrate.
I think there's, from what I heard, there are certain sites where they congregate. I forget, there's a term for it. It's a derivation of hibernating. But they tend to group in areas, but I think that there's some bit of leaving, but yeah, I mean, as you can tell from me trying to remember all the things I heard about this, I don't know for sure.
But you're gonna follow the protocol, that's, we're not gonna get
whatever
more
it
than
is,
that.
it is, and we have to follow it. I was just saying that as far as I know right now, the only restriction is that window for clearing, so we intend to follow that, but if there's anything else, it seems odd to me that this is, it's an federally endangered species, and normally my understanding of the process is that local municipalities have to come up with a management plan for that. For example, the piping plovers that we do, but I haven't heard anything of it. Once we do, we'll follow it to the letter, but I'm not aware of anything.
Eric, do you know offhand when the clearing, when the prohibition on clearing, what is that? When can you clear?
I should know because I've heard it many a time.
When the bats aren't there.
I mean, I'm wondering how big of a window do you have to work?
Yeah,
So
Tina's looking up.
The department encourages the voluntary implementation of all forest management activities during the hibernation period, which in Suffolk is December 1st through February 28th, when the bats are not expected to be present. Right? So you have to clear during those times, and you can't clear other times because the bats are expected to be present.
For 3 months.
So do you know if they have young, they would have young here? They would breed and have young and nests and all that?
I mean, I would assume that they would, yes, when they are here and not hibernating elsewhere.
Okay. All right, so we'll find out more about them.
I don't think we're gonna learn too much. I mean,
It's
we're
3
just
months.
gonna check with DEC because they recently were relisted and we think it's prudent to do so. But this has been pretty consistent for a couple of years.
Okay.
And if they knew of like any significant resources within the area here, they would have said that during the initial coordination. But we haven't been told that yet. So we'll confirm, but
should be.
Okay. Then my last thing would be, as far as the reserved areas and the flag strip. So the flag strip along the sort of left-hand side of the property, the west side, which provides access to the open space portion of the north, and the two reserved areas in the south and the open space CPF parcel in the north. You know who designs trails really well is the East Hampton Trails Preservation Society. What I'm concerned about, first of all, I think in the language of the deeds and the easements, or the language, the restrictions in the reserved areas and in the flag strip up to the CPF, I think that we should reserve the right to, to have pedestrian, perhaps bicycle, perhaps horses, I don't know. We should have the right to put trails in all of those places. Ideally, we could lay it out ahead of time so everybody has an idea, but I doubt that's going to happen. But we at least, I think, need to reserve the ability for designing and improving pedestrian trails, perhaps horse and bicycle.
Andy, are you saying on the residential lots?
No.
No, I'm saying everything but the residential lots.
Okay.
And so it would be within the CPF property and its access strip, and also those two little reserved areas on the south side that are against the highway. I would probably make sure we can put them in alongside the main road in the right of way. And then of course through that little connecting piece through the lot on the north. We have to reserve the right to be able to design and install trails, avoiding large trees when possible. But I think that'll make the quality of life here much better to have these trails. And once a project like this is done, as the town board has in the past, they can use community development money, as Eric well knows, to make improvements like that. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Very good.
Can I just make one important
Please,
distinction?
go ahead, yeah.
Randy, you were just talking about the trails in the front reserved area and then throughout the CPF portion. I just want to make an important distinction. The flag on the western side and then the rear CPF portion is CPF property, so it's going to be subject to a land management plan
Okay.
by the town board, reviewed by the CPF committee. So basically what they do with that and where they put a trail is kind of up to them. But definitely for sure that front reserved area is a reserved area established for this subdivision. It's totally within the planning board's purview.
Okay, so that would take care of the CPF then. And so it's just what about the right of way? What about?
Yeah, yep, totally, whatever.
That's part of subdivision.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, we're okay with that. So we can't really have any influence, if you will, on what the CPF.
That's a much more succinct and better way of putting it. Yeah, forget about the CPF because that's
that ain't us.
But yeah,
Okay, that simplifies it.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Sharon, you want to take
Yeah,
it?
so Randy, you're for keeping the access easement for the residents in the north, right?
Yeah, you mean on paper. And then, of course, the language would allow for it to be opened and in some form. We might want to limit the, how wide is it? Is it 10 feet, Eric?
Yeah, it's 10 feet. The access, the north end access.
Yeah, 10 feet.
So we could, Sharon, for example, we could try to put limitation in that access that it couldn't be open to wider than 4 feet or something like that to give greater privacy to the lot owners.
Right. Okay.
Anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eric, has a good idea of what he wants to do with the street trees and mature trees, and I think, they'll do the right thing. I mean, I think whether it's 6 inches caliper, as Randy suggested, I'm not really sure. But I think they're thinking about it, and I feel comfortable with their decision-making there. I definitely don't like the idea of a sidewalk. I think the 3-foot works. I think Randy's idea of a path through the trees is a really nice idea, whether it's something that can be done without too much thought. I mean, I don't know if that sounds complicated for you, Eric, but it's a nice idea, for sure. I think stormwater and the long-eared bats, I think, is being dealt with. And then really the access is still, I mean, I just, if it's 10 feet and we only use 4 feet, that seems good to me, but to clear 10 feet seems like a lot, and it would be an onerous on that one lot that we're kind of cutting through. I'm okay with using the bottom and going around. I'm a little bit undecided on that, to be honest with you.
I'm gonna go through 1 to 5. The project limiting fencing sounds good. I looked at the DEC, and this goes with the trees and the bats. They recommend leave snag and cavity trees uncut. So if you can leave those uncut, that'd be great. The sidewalks, I cannot remember, but I assume there's no street parking, Eric?
I mean, that's to be determined. I don't think there was any vision of prohibiting parking on the street.
Seems very likely there'll be street parking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Partay.
And it's, across in 26 feet, is that what you said?
The pavement.
With the accounting, like the 3 foot beyond the white.
Yep.
I already know it's pretty tight when a landscaper parks a truck on the side of the road. That's all I have.
So are you suggesting somehow restricting parking within that 3 feet?
Well, I'm just like, where are folks going to park? I imagine each house will have 2 cars. Is there enough space in their driveway to put 2 cars?
They build it that way. I mean, there's certainly space for it.
Okay.
Well,
So we're not there yet. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, it's up to each individual person to design their properties the way they want to design them.
but I think Michael's raising the issue, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, that the 3 feet walkway, if you will, on the far side of the white line is going to be essentially eliminated once vehicles start parking there. Is that-
I think people are going to, I took a photo of the white line in Sagaponic. I think people are going to park
Yeah.
their car on the grass or whatever's growing there and halfway on the street.
Mhm.
Eric, how wide is the clearing for the road?
You need, trying to remember the exact number here, you need 4 feet on each side. So again, this actually,
34 feet?
yeah. So as you're talking about because Michael, you were mentioning sort of the idea of, well, there's only 3 feet of asphalt there, and what if somebody's parking there? You need another 4 feet of cleared width on that side. So you'll have, white line, 3 feet of asphalt, and then 4 feet cleared on the margin, and then the rest can remain trees. So there'll be plenty of room for people to be able to pull off. This is basically, if you've ever driven through Whalebone Woods or Green Hollow or most of the residential neighborhoods in town, that's what this would look like.
Yes,
that don't have a subdivision.
Springs.
We're not talking any really unique dimensions here. The only thing is that because of the hydrant, you need an extra, 2 feet. So.
What do you think of that path idea?
one on each side. Huh?
What do you think of the path idea?
I think that's fine. I don't know necessarily what it accomplishes. I feel like it's probably just gonna require more clearing of land and trees and kind of fragment things.
So you can't put it on the 4 feet?
Not
can't
if you
put it in a 4-foot
meander,
clear?
Eric.
I'm sorry.
Not if you meander through the trees. You got 12 feet on both sides. I think you could put a trail in there without cutting anything.
I guess I just feel like if you have a road that's paved on a quiet dead-end street and there's 3 feet of shoulder that's paved, people are gonna wanna walk on the asphalt and not in the dirt on the side of the road. Especially if it's just looping around, you kind of, usually when you walk down a street, you walk on the street, on the corner of the street, not, something that's only a couple of feet away from the asphalt. I mean, I know people that run, some of them don't even want to run on the sidewalk. Not that I'm, advocating sidewalks here or doing that. But most people will walk on the shoulder of the street, and it's a 16-lot subdivision. I don't see, where that conflict is going to be, where we need to get pedestrians all the way away and do, you're right, Randy, it's not, you can weave something between the trees. If we want to come in the future and do that and create a walking path, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything in the subdivision as it's laid out right now, or any special restriction that you need where you need to design a trail that's parallel to the road on both sides right now. It's something that if it's felt is needed, again, this isn't a private developer, this is the town owns the land. So if it's something that we feel is necessary in the future, we can come in and put it in. But my thinking on it is that, a road with an adequate shoulder that is not a through street and not a major street, it's not going to be a problem. People are just going to walk on the shoulder like they do on any residential neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. They may make their own footpath through those reserved areas.
So I have a question about, the last question about the flag lot, and will there be fencing behind the, because if it was my lot, I imagine I'd put the kids' playground like 1 foot into that, and.
Well, if you want to make that a continuing condition of the subdivision, you could leave it as an unresolved thing for the town board to do in the future. I mean, there was talk, I think in the last conversation about let's put it on paper, but not actually build it. So that's another option. But yeah, that's exactly why I advocated of why I don't think that that's a practical in the real world, that 10-foot wide easement with a 4-foot trail, because what are you gonna do? You're gonna put a fence up here and a fence here and walk through a corridor of fencing. It's just the scale that we're dealing with here doesn't really make it feasible.
I'm talking about.
He's talking about on the far end of each parcel.
The west side.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you meant on that pedestrian.
No.
Just on the west side, or east side and west side?
No, there's nothing on the.
Yeah, but I'm saying you want the fencing on the back end of each lot?
I mean,
My concern is that if there's going to be a conflict, if you have people walking on the trail and you have neighbors.
You don't want people walking into their backyards.
There you go.
It is something you can, again, sort of 3 things.
Each property owner can put up a fence if they want.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, yeah.
But that condition exists all over town, where there are trails and which abut.
And they can't use the flag for their property, even though they might try.
Yes.
But they can.
So, I mean, you could put a subdivision requirement in there that says, a minimum 6-foot tall stockade fence along the rear of these properties shall be.
But then you're
required.
blocking access.
You want that.
You're blocking them getting there, also.
Blocking access to.
For them to get to
People who live
the, out into
on
the,
the east side, those folks can walk right from their backyard into the access way.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a gate on my fence, opens right up.
Well,
but I feel like it's unnecessary.
should it be required, or should it be up to the
I don't
individual
think-
property owner to decide to do that?
There are properties here, I've seen it in Waynescott, where they over years, you kind of encroach a little by each year, and then suddenly you've taken over that whole, and you put your swing set in the backyard, and then that's the path of the hiker.
I'll put it to you this way, you're fully within your rights as a board to require that as a condition. I think it's something that is going to resolve itself. Well, people are going to put up a fence there on the edge of their property. It's also something, again, this is not a private developer, it's the town. It's something that the town board can require. Again, remember that the town board has already committed to prohibiting swimming pools and playing courts. The lots really just aren't large enough for them. They've also committed to limiting the gross floor area permitted on a residence on the property to 10% of the lot. The requirement right now under the code gives you at least 1,600 square feet more than that. It's the percentage plus 1,600 square feet. Those are things that are going to be imposed as a condition of the lease with the property. So we're going to, the homes are going to start off small. They can't get too much larger. There's things that are going to be handled by the town board because this is a subdivision that's going to be in the home ownership program. So you have that redundancy, but I will tell you my understanding of it. You can make that a condition. I just think, first of all, the town board is going to oversee this and make sure that these properties look nice. I mean, this is a project that there are eyes on, and we want this to be a model for affordable housing moving forward. And also, I think every property owner is going to want to do that. Most property owners want to have a fence around the perimeter of their lot,
I'm just
especially when it's small.
imagining 15 years from now, 20, and these are 99-year leases too, right? Over time, little by little.
So they put up a fence to stop.
They can't claim adverse.
If it's my backyard, I'm going to put something here, put something there, and move.
Keep in mind too.
I'll go all the way to the.
Keep in mind too that these are homes that are under the home ownership program. My office, we usually with homes like this, we don't, we're certainly not every day-to-day checking to make sure everybody's, cutting their lawn or checking where their fences are. We're not that intrusive, but we have control over these lots. There's a lease, even the standard lease agreement has certain parameters in it of maintaining your property.
More
And then
importantly,
beyond
the
that,
Office of Land Management is gonna make, if they're encroaching in their land.
and beyond that, the other side of this property line is town property. It's a CPF park.
And presumably they're gonna check that annually and make sure.
Yeah.
Michael, you're right, that happens, there's no question, but.
Yeah, you can't claim adverse possession against the town. So even if they,
I'm not even talking
You're not a
about-
property owner anyway, so you can't do it in the first place.
yeah,
The property owner owns the home. The town owns the land.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, in terms of adverse possession, you'd have to be the property owner
Yeah.
of the neighboring property to claim
Yeah, well,
adverse
yes,
possession.
yes.
And you're not the
So-
property owner, so you can't
so
do it.
you,
It's still,
Like claim an
you could
easement.
still put your playground in there and not have to claim anything. I'm just talking
Yeah.
about. Will there
We
be?
understand your
The
point,
town's gonna
Michael.
be, yeah. But it sounds like they're gonna be checking that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I feel like it's an unnecessary condition because everybody's gonna want a fence. The town will put up a fence if it's a problem. I get the point, but, and I'm agreeing with you in a weird way. I think it needs fences along those lines, but I think it's gonna happen and you don't need it as a subdivision.
You don't need to compel the placement of the fence. Either the town will do it or the individual property owners, when they're aggrieved enough by the continuous traffic of people traipsing into their property or their rented property, will put up the fence on their own in their own due time. So
Yeah, that's,
I think it would be a problem, but I think that the idea that it'll work itself out is probably most logical. And in terms of us not imposing too much on the individuals.
and you've seen it too before with subdivision and subway modification requests that are on your work sessions where you looked at something and you go, oh, well, I see why they did that, but there's a new regulation or something, you'd also have to get into what constitutes a fence. Is there opacity? What is it made out of? What is the height? That, you'd have to refine that in the conditions. So I just feel like it's unnecessary.
Nice chain link.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Just what everyone would want.
Eric, how wide is that flag strip? Is that, I can't read it, 38 feet?
He's going to be.
I'm sorry? No, it's 50 feet minimum.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. So even,
Randy, let me let Ian go. And
okay. I just wanted to say that if there's a trail built in the flag strip, they've got 50 feet, so they could also try to stay away from those backyards. But go ahead, Ian.
backyard.
No, whenever it's my turn, I'm ready.
Instead, it would be in our backyard. I'm sorry, I know we're not taking comments from the public,
Yeah.
but the 50-foot that you keep referring to as a flag strip was presented to the entire neighborhood immediately to the west as a
Well,
buffer.
you know what, let's do this. Before you speak, we don't take public comment during work session except for, and it's really just a matter of policy of the chair, to hear from neighbors about specific conditions about which the board might not know, about which the planning department might not have reported. So for instance, the example I always use is that corner floods. You don't know this, but the corner floods. And so it's always nice to have somebody from the public tell us about that. Now, if you have a comment that you want to bring to bear before the board, would you mind terribly if we
No,
suspend for a moment?
Whatever.
And if you'd like to, I'll give you 3 minutes and you could talk about that. Okay, with the clear understanding that this is not public, it's not a public hearing, it's not public comment, it's more informational for the board's interest. Is that okay?
The hearing's closed, right?
This is
The
not a
record's
hearing.
closed.
Not a public,
This is
Randy.
not a hearing.
No, I'm just saying it for her sake too, the record is closed on
The
this.
record is closed. It's not
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't this a new application technically because it's final?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And it is standard during the final to get input like that, just the same.
Let me just set my little clock here. Okay,
Should
your
I state
name,
my name again?
Please.
Okay. It's Lorraine Bonaventura, Bonaventura, and I live at 6 Spring Close Lane. The end of our lane is the beginning of the 50-foot, which was always described to us as a buffer between the development that was going to be immediately to our east and us. It's a long developed, full-time, not seasonal residential neighborhood. And everybody's properties back up to the 50 feet. So we do have concerns about any kind of encroachment onto our property, or, bicycles, paths. We understand that it belongs to Community Preservation Fund, and we've been participating in this process from the beginning when there was a discussion about the housing being on the northern border or the housing being on the southern border. So we have been giving input all along, and we feel positive that I think the town board and the planning board has listened to us. And we hope that you continue to do that. Whether there would be a fence that is put up at the beginning or, I think that you just have to be sensitive to the people who are living immediately on the other side of that. What I call a buffer was presented to us as a buffer and not as what did you call it? A flag strip.
I think that's more of a reflection of the physical nature of it as, reaching from 27 up to the opening.
But it is access to the back piece.
Yes,
It's a
no, I
buffer, but
understand.
it is also access to that.
No, and
property
we
in the
do
back.
understand
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Do you have a fence in your backyard?
We just put up a fence in anticipation of this, and we've had this house for 70 years where there were no fences anywhere. But now everyone has put up fences in anticipation of this. So, and I do think that there really does need to be a lot of discussion about, which I already said before, about additional traffic along 27 and what that access would look like. Okay,
Thanks very much. We're going to move on. Ian?
Yeah, well, first of all, Michael brings up a good point about, I understand people encroach all over the place. I would hope the Office of Land Management will make sure that doesn't happen. The reason I would not be in favor of a fence as a condition is because I think then it would have to be constructed before the project, which wouldn't allow for gates and access. And I think that people can decide whether they want it to be open or not. As the neighbor just said, they want to have protection for their property, and so they have a fence. I have a feeling that almost every property would do that, but I don't think that we should impose it, and I don't think that we should have to make sure that they stay on their own property. As far as the street trees versus preserving mature trees, it sounds like Eric and Randy suggested that they mark large trees. I think that's a fine idea. I also don't think it'd be terrible if they wanted to do plantings, but to me, it seems like sort of one or the other. And going for a more rural, natural look, perhaps preserving large trees is the way to go. I do feel that some sort of a sidewalk that's not on the road is important. I think that we frankly have dangerous roadways for pedestrians here, and I don't think that we should, continue to design that way. I understand the resistance towards formal sidewalks and wanting to make it look more rural. So if it would sort of satisfy people's rural sensibilities to have a meandering path around large trees, I think that's a really good idea that Randy had and would serve as a way for children and whoever to walk in a safe place and maybe not. I think it should be some sort of a paving, so a bike, a tricycle or whatever could be on it. But I'm in favor of some sort of formal path or, real path that's not on the road. I realize I'm probably the minority there. I'm good with the stormwater plan. You guys are doing it with the DEC and in terms of construction, great. As far as the bat goes, I did hear when Tina was reading that, it seemed like it was encouraged to do this optional thing. I think I would ask that we formalize that. It seems like it's not too onerous that you just restrict your clearing to those times. To be clear, that doesn't mean you can only build 2 months of the year. It's just when you're doing your clearing. But I think the town should go above and beyond to make sure they comply, even though it sounded like it might be technically voluntary. As far as the reserved access, I think that the reserved area should be for the whole town. Again, probably the minority there, but I don't think we should restrict that back area to just the residents, even though that will probably be what actually happens.
We can't do that.
Well, he says
It's just the path.
just the path. I don't think we should. I'm really in favor of having access as access. And do I think that people are gonna walk through there? Probably not. But, if people aren't going to use it or it's not necessary, then I'm not sure why we have to restrict it. But I do think that, and we heard from members of the public who felt pretty strong in this application, and pretty much all of them, that, reserved areas are for the public and should be for the entire public. So I don't think we should put that restriction. I think Randy had a really good point about wherever we have the opportunity, we should use broad language that allows for trails to be used. If not, I don't think we can pick where a trail goes right now, but I don't think they should be prohibited. And I think that covers all of the issues.
Yeah, the one issue, I'll just talk about the issues that I think the bat and some of the other issues are pretty much left in the hands of good people that know what to do. But the one issue that I do feel strongly about, and I may be in the minority, is to create that path through the property. I think it's lot 7. I think that's a pretty wide path. And it's being created to allow certain people not to have to walk a longer distance to go around on the flag strip. And if you're going for a walk, as I think I said the last time, to walk a few extra steps, quarter of a mile, whatever it is, I think it's not a hardship. It's something that you should be doing anyway. And to create that wide swath of reserved area through somebody's backyard, I think that's a big infringement on that particular property. And it's not worth it to give access to a few people to make it a shorter hike for them. As far as the sidewalks are concerned, I'd like, I'm for keeping the rural area. I'm not sure about the path. I think if people want to use the path, I think it could be self-created. I don't know if we need to have a formal, some sort of cleared, path other than something that's created by people traipsing through it. So I'm against the sidewalks. And I think that covers all the issues that yeah, that's it.
Okay. I agree with most of what's been said by my colleagues. I think that you guys have a good plan about the trees. I do think it's, a great goal to try to preserve as many mature trees as possible. A 6-inch caliper is the measure, great. I think it's going to be a little bit challenging on 20,000 square foot lots to keep a lot of trees that are not in the reserved areas, but I think you'll do the right thing. So I'm not really that concerned about that. The sidewalks, I definitely think sidewalks, particularly now that the street is wider than I think we had anticipated it being initially. I more than ever don't love the idea of a formal sidewalk, but if it were possible to do the kind of meandering path that Randy suggested, I think we should look at that. But it may happen casually and on its own anyway. I don't know the traffic on a street with 8 houses on each side is really going to be so significant that it's going to cause a lot of huge safety concerns. I live on a street that has a lot of kids without a sidewalk, and it doesn't seem to be an issue, and there are basketball hoops in the street and the whole thing. So I am a little agnostic about that, but I would definitely, if it were possible to do it, say yes to the path. Yeah, so the bat thing, obviously we're even though it's recommended, suggested, I think we're gonna follow the DEC's guidelines on that. And in terms of access, I, like Lou, don't feel strongly about the Lot 7 access point at all. I'd be perfectly happy if all access was from the southern side. But if other people feel strongly that it should be there, I am definitely not for restricting it. That's it.
Sam, I forgot one point about the trees. Eric, I thought you said at one point that if we didn't mark the trees, it really wouldn't be something that would cause us to lose trees because the reserved area is already marked off, and that's where most of the trees are. And marking the trees is just sort of doing something that's kind of unnecessary because of that fact.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm focusing on trees that would be in the shoulder of the right-of-way. Obviously you'd be asphalt in the middle, and then you have that space on the sides. I was basically just saying, we could go along there and just put project limiting fencing so that we could preserve a patch of vegetation that's in the right of way. Within the lots themselves, that would be up to the individual property owners. Right. There are clearing restrictions on the lot, but I mean, my point though was more that, I've been to the property. It's a relatively uniform oak, mixed deciduous woodland. There aren't, it's not a property where you had historic clearing and you had a lawn and then a couple of trees remained and there's these big grand mature trees that you want to preserve. I'm not trying to be prejudiced on woodland trees, but they're kind of all the same thing. They're all just about the same size. So there's nothing that really stands out. So I don't really see it. It's less preserving mature trees versus do you want to preserve certain patches of woodland and trees in the margins of the road or in other areas. I mean, the areas that are within the CPF portion, you're already not touching. First of all, they're not part of the subdivision, they're a separate lot. And then the reserved area in the front, other than perhaps having a provision for a trail through it, nobody's going to be touching it. So everything's going to remain there. So by process of elimination, you take out the building lots, you take out the CPF portion, you take out the reserved area. We're really just talking about trees in the right-of-way in the context of street trees, which is part of the planning board's process.
You just wrote that section off and you're done.
I feel that's adequate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
what I would agree with. Yeah.
Ed, you finished up your comments, and anybody else? Okay. I'm pretty much. I think that you've got consensus as far as bats and trees and stormwater. The board is, you're pretty much hearing the same thing from all of us. I mean, the only real points of division on the board, if you will, is relating to the non-natural things, such as namely the sidewalk, the roadway, the path. Speaking for myself, I was ambivalent about the sidewalk, and in the course of this conversation, I am now anti-sidewalk. I think that there's really no necessity for it. It's a narrow street, it's not a narrow street, it's a short street with 8 houses on either side at most. I think that the sense of community is going to be such that people aren't going to come speeding down the street and taking children's lives in their hands. I certainly hope that's not the case. I think that it'll be like so many other cul-de-sacs in this town, a small community on which people will live and watch out for their neighbors and be careful. And I don't think that the addition of the sidewalk is going to do very much to increase that. I am a little worried about cars parking on the sides. I don't necessarily think that we should be paving in a trail because the lots aren't that big to start with. And if we're going to be concerned about, for example, lots 7 and 8 that are the ones that are taking that trail up on top, it's the same calculation, more or less, for that trail that will meander its way throughout the entire subdivision. I should say that I agree with Lou on this lot 7 and 8 trail. I don't see the screaming necessity for it. I think that if I lived in those 2 lots, I might say, you know, why do I have all this not say constant traffic, but frequent traffic of people cutting through my what feels like my side yard to get to the reserve area.
Sam, didn't we vote on that? No, but didn't we already vote on that?
We did. I'm just associating myself with Lou's comment, that's all. But the point is that I think that the more we keep this, you know, as organic as we can, with minimal amounts of development, love things like sidewalks and paved trails, I think the better. And I'm also very persuaded actually, by the argument that the other 3 developments that the town maintains don't have that sort of thing. And I've been in at least 2 of them, and it's the same sense of community of people who, you know, no one's taking, you know, advantage of a roadway. I don't think. So that said, I don't know if you have, like I say, a consensus here from the board. Is there going to be a report from us to the town board on this, or is it how you?
You want to go through the questions?
Why don't we? That's probably the best way to do it.
Well, I think we had worked on that, right?
Yeah, I in the many things that we scribble down. Yes, I think that was one of them. All right, does the planning board
We have to grant final approval.
I'm sorry.
We have to grant final approval of
We
the
do.
Yeah.
Does the planning board require further preservation of trees, and if so, what size of tree is specified for protection? The answer is yes, and I heard, Randy, did you say 6 inches?
Yeah, but I thought.
But just in the front,
Yeah, within the,
just
right,
in the
not
right
the
of way,
lots themselves.
in the right of way.
Yeah, I'd like to make a point to that because I sort of held off on that. Randy's right that is something that is often done, is to identify a tree of a certain caliber and then preserve them. Again, like I said, it's usually ones that stand out as uniquely large, you know, on the property. But if you, well, I'll say first of all, if you do a 6-inch caliper, yeah, you're doing it right now. We will be mapping every single tree on this property.
Yeah, right,
which is gonna get a little tedious and expensive. So I don't think that's necessary, but yeah, I mean.
Maybe we can get somebody from the planning department to go out or natural resources to go out and let them use their best judgment.
That's an option.
Also, it's just on the margins here of the right of way. We said it's not necessary on the lots. We said it's not necessary on the reserve areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not only will, I think it's a better idea rather than saying, you know, let's pick a size tree and we'll go in that area, on that relatively small area on the margins of the road, in the right of way, and map trees of a certain size. I think it's best just to say, okay, you know, we know we got a road of 26 feet of asphalt. We'll need about 4 feet on each side. We'll rope off the rest of it with project limiting fencing and just preserve the woodland that exists.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
That sounds good to me.
Sounds
To
fine.
me.
We'll get around.
Okay.
All right, next, this is the biggie. Does the planning board require sidewalks? I guess we're gonna have to go around the table.
No.
No. Michael?
No.
Randy?
No sidewalks.
Ian?
Well, I thought I was on Randy's side here with the
No, Ian, I agree with,
Paved on the
the
sidewalk.
paved rural meandering trail.
yeah, I like the meandering trail, but no concrete, straight suburban type sidewalk. But I think people will, I don't know. I think Ian, I think you and I agree on this, that, we've got-
Yeah, well, I do think it should be paved, asphalt or something, but again, I'm not going to believe the point.
12, we've got 12 feet. Eric's going to protect the woodland and almost.
And I'm going to lose the vote, so it's okay.
10 feet on each, 10 feet on each side, maybe will remain woodland.
So Randy, assuming you're a no sidewalk, that's a 6-1 sidewalk.
Don't label a sidewalk.
Actually, you're not really a sidewalk.
Whatever, we got direction.
The planning board does not require sidewalks there.
Well, I think Ian makes a really good point that the East Hampton in general, the roads are hostile to pedestrians
But not in
and
a
dangerous. They're
16-house cul-de-sac.
No cul-de-sac though, so.
This
I
is a
mean,
16-house
All
cul-de-sac.
right, guys, we made
All right,
this
let's
off.
move on to the next. Are there additional specific requirements for construction protocol aside from confirmation of the NLEB restrictions and the notations already on the map? I don't think I didn't get anybody. So
Just follow the voluntary
yeah,
guidance.
do that, yes. Does the board wish to see the trails in the reserve area?
We'd like to have trails.
The ability.
Trails,
to
yeah, the ability to construct, right, Randy? You good with that?
Well, I think we're just talking about not ruling it out in the
Yeah,
language.
that's the idea, that's the idea. Okay.
Don't you miss us, Eric?
I do.
Plenty of meat on the bone.
We miss you, Eric.
Get out there with that axe.
Very good.
Right, Paul Bunyan. All right, thank you very much, thank you for your participation. We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, next, Ross Athletic Fence? Is that, no?
That's me.
That's you, okay. What we'll do is we'll hear first from the planning department, and then you'll have an opportunity to speak. And then this is also member Parsons. So sorry, I know you're chomping at the bit.
My first time, I'll follow you lead.
All right, so Tina, take us through this one.
Okay. This is the application for the Ross Athletic Fence. The location is 20 Fred Drive in East Hampton. I'm just trying to bring up the aerial image, just give me a second. Computer went to sleep during that discussion. I don't have the aerial image.
Do you want the survey image?
Yeah, I have the survey image. Oh, here it is. This is the site right here.
Yes.
The applicant's stated purpose, this is a application for an athletic field fence, deer fencing around the athletic field, and the stated purpose is to limit the exposure to ticks, children using the fields. The site's zoned A5 in a water recharge overlay district, but the use is a special permit use. The Ross School is a semi-public facility. And therefore, the planning board has jurisdiction of looking at changes on the site for a special permit use or residential. A minor site plan approval was issued in May 18 of 2022 for the construction of new athletic facilities at this location, and the building permit was issued last summer. Regarding SECR, the project's a type 2, and the category that it fits into SECR is listed in the report. With respect to the issues, the fence, which you can see here on the survey image, is outlined in green around the athletic facilities you saw in the aerial. The fence is really within the purview of ARB, and it must conform to the requirements of 255-11-38. What I can say about the fence is that it's located interior to the site. Location is several hundred feet away from Good Friend Drive, and there really is no public vantage point around the fence that would, make it a prominently viewable feature of the site. So in terms of aesthetics, I don't think there are any concerns. The area surrounding where the fence is going to be is heavily wooded, so there's really good woods around the entirety of the perimeter of the site, blocking even the periphery of the site from view. Regarding the type of action this is, we recommend it's a minor site plan pursuant to 255-645. And with that, this application is complete. We recommend that the proposed fence meets the minor site plan criteria, that it's not a substantial change to the special permit use. And if the planning board agrees it's a minor site plan, they can waive the public hearing and discuss if the application's ready for approval. That's all.
Very good. The applicant like to be heard?
Sure.
You're welcome to. You don't have to.
One thing, and this may mess
If you're
everything.
gonna say anything, though, you need to do it there. Tell us your name, spell your last name.
My name is Stephen O'Brien. I'm the facilities director for the school, O'Brien.
Thank you.
One thing which may throw this all into jeopardy, because you all seem to be fairly in agreement, for aesthetic reasons and to minimize the number of trees that get taken down, it was proposed to change the direction of some of the fencing. For example, instead of following the perimeter of the field here, which would be much more visible and require the trimming of some trees that are there, to potentially move the fence to run through our property, meandering through to any trees that are there, and kind of hide the whole fence in the woods so that it was less of a sight, a sore vision.
Is that Good Friend to its immediate left?
This is Good Friend here,
That's
as
Good
you
Friend.
come down with the cul-de-sac.
Oh, that's Wolf Hole,
Yeah.
the undedicated road or?
This is like a
unpaved
site
road?
drive, right? I mean,
There's nothing,
This is
it's just
not
all
open.
woods.
Yeah.
yeah. And this here is
That's,
open and paved, but there's a lot of woodland between.
It
So I'm
backs
sorry,
up
did you
Plank,
submit
right?
a different proposal that I missed? Or you're just saying this change came recently?
it just came recently
Okay.
as I was working in the fields and thinking about the fencing, and I thought aesthetically, and if you can zoom out for 1 second. Where it gets into an issue with the trees is this is a walking path. If you can see that small thing that goes along, this is all wooded area, these are the fields. By relocating this into here, again, it just isn't right in your face. And you're not walking like up in the prison yard, right? Because otherwise you'd be walking along the fence. We proposed several pedestrian gates and vehicle gates as required by the fire marshal. And then also pedestrian gates into the woods as a safety measure. And other than that.
So you're saying this is not going to be the exact map that you would,
I can have another one drawn up for you. I'm happy to submit that to the board.
okay.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Randy? Randy?
Okay, hi. So I think good with the minor site plan, good with no hearing. Pretty much leave the fence review to the ARB. But I do like the change, the meandering fence through the woods, a little bit off the fields, makes a lot of sense to me. You don't have to cut down trees and you don't feel like you're in a prison. I think we'll have to see that new line. So that's it.
Great. Does anybody have anything they want to add on this one?
Nope, agree.
There you go. You're good.
Yeah, I think we just need to see whatever the proposal really is.
No problem. I
Yeah,
can
you'll need
submit it
to
your
resubmit that, yeah.
office.
Check with the planning department, make sure you have the right number of copies and in the right format.
Yeah.
So, just so we're all agreed,
So
it doesn't qualify as, I'm sorry, it does qualify as a minor site plan,
Yes.
everyone?
Yes.
And we all agree that there's no need for a public hearing therefore?
No.
Right.
And we all agree that the application's ready for approval pending your new site map.
Correct.
And ARB.
Yes, I agree.
And then you got the ARB to deal with.
Yeah.
I've already started that, but then they deferred me to here by the town attorney.
Very good. Okay,
Okay?
thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Appreciate it. All right. Now, moving a few yards away in Waynescott to the east, we have Bayberry Estates. Ian, that's going to be you, the applicant who mistakenly moved over to the west at law school, and Tina. So Tina, go right ahead.
Let me just try to put the aerial image up again. This is not too far away, like Sam just said, but it is a different site. Right. I don't know why that keeps happening, honestly. All right, I'm just going to show you the survey. Do not belabor this, if you don't mind. So the site is located in Waynescott. There we go. This is Waynescott Northwest Road. And it is a open space subdivision, preliminary subdivision. The application is made to subdivide a 746,342 square foot parcel in Waynescott into 3 individual lots, with 70% of the parcel to be designated as reserve area. The parcel is only 5 residents and is in the water recharge overlay district, also within the Suffolk County Pine Barrens and groundwater management zone 5. Neighboring parcels to the north, east, and south are also A5 residents, so all around here, and nearly all are developed with single-family residences. The site is 100% uncleared of naturally occurring vegetation. The board has seen this application before a few times. So to go through the comments in the memo regarding the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the action is unlisted and a EAF Part 1 has been submitted. We recommend that the planning board proceed with coordinated review at this time. The EAF is acceptable. Regarding this site and potential acquisition, during the last planning board review session, it was recommended that the site be considered by the land management office for a potential CPF purchase. We did coordinate with them, and we understand that evaluation of the property has occurred in the past with no offers being made. We understand they're going to do one final review and let us know what they come up with regarding the site, but there is no offer yet. Regarding the yield, at the comments issued at the last review, pursuant to the subdivision code, the applicant was required to submit a yield map that showed the standard subdivision being applied to the lot, just to prove out the yield. They did that, and I find the yield map acceptable, 3 lots with a much smaller reserve area than is being proposed now. Going back to the proposed map, the subdivision code requires 70% of the property in an A5 water recharge overlay district be preserved as reserve area. The applicant design is preserving all the area kind of around the perimeter of the property, in the rear and on the south side. A majority of the reserved area, or a majority of the steep slopes present on the site are within the reserve area, which is an appropriate choice since those areas are not developable per the code at steep slopes greater than 20%. I mean, the building envelopes are shown on the map, and those are also acceptable. I believe the planning board has reviewed this configuration in the past, so we should just make sure that we're happy with this lot arrangements. Regarding lot area, we did make a few notes about this. The flag portion of the lots should not be included in the lot area calculations, and just want to make sure that that has not been done here. The lot sizes are currently shown between 1.5 and 1.7 acres. The minimum in this residential zone is 200,000 square feet, but because of the open space subdivision, the planning board has the authority to waive those requirements should they deem it in the interests of good planning. So that's something that we should agree on as we move forward. Regarding the reserve area, You know, again, the code sections referenced, just want to make sure that we know as part of this action, how the reserve area is going to be handled per the code. There's 3 entities that would need to take title to the reserve area, and the applicant should specify what their plan is. I also wanted to note there are large areas of open space to the west of this site. On this side, I attached a map of the open recreational space to my memo. If I can get the GIS working, I'll show it to you as well. So we want to leave we recommend it's appropriate to leave the potential open for trail connections and publicly accessible trails through this large subdivision. Regarding the clearing proposed on the lots, it's 65%, much higher than it would be for lots of this size in the zoning district, but that is permitted per the code for an open space subdivision in this district. Regarding the water supply system, since the last memo, the applicant was requested to put proximity of wells on the map to be sure that separation distance is required to be maintained. They've done that, and you can see that some of them are very close to the building envelopes. We recommended that a map notation requiring that the septic system stay within the building envelopes may be appropriate. You know, septic systems can be very close to a property line typically, and in this case, if they encroached, it could be problematic. I think it would be captured during the health department, but I don't think it hurts to affirmatively address that on the map as well. Regarding access, the common driveway at the last review, I'm just going to zoom in. During the last review, the planning board issued their comments requesting the applicant provide a common driveway. And currently they're in a common area, but there really are 3 separate driveways. So that's kind of a lot more clearing than you could get if you used a single access point from Wainscott Northwest Road. So we want to hear from the applicant, you know, why this wasn't addressed, and if they're seeing something that we're not, and if the planning board still wants the common driveway, it should be addressed on the map. The fire marshal has reviewed the driveway plan and issued comments regarding the need for turnoffs for emergency access. That will also need to be complied with. Right now, the cross sections proposed are compliant with code. Preliminary map requirements, there are additional elements of the subdivision that need to be addressed: the stormwater drainage system, fire hydrant, well system locations. These will be submitted. We don't have the details on those yet, and the town engineer will have to review them. The site's very close, moving on to the airport, and airport noise easements are going to be required. That should be added to the map, and recorded on the properties as well to ensure folks are aware of their proximity to that feature of the town. This is in the Suffolk County Pine Barrens, and you know, as soon as the board is satisfied with the subdivision, we like to get it to Suffolk County to get their comments. We don't know if they'll have special comments because of its location there, but I think it's beneficial to check sooner rather than later. So in conclusion, the application's incomplete, given the required consideration of a common driveway, updating of the map to reflect the additional detailed drainage information, and notations for the reserved area and airport noise easements. The planning board should also consider the overall configuration of the subdivision, including the reserve area, common driveways, to determine if the configuration is acceptable.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. That's a very thorough report, and it's much appreciated. And the applicant would like to be heard.
Good evening. Dan Weaver, land surveyor on behalf of the applicant. It's Weaver, W-E-A-V-E-R. Thank you, Tina, for the report. A couple things that I will comment on as we go through here. Start going down to basically the reserve area comments. The intention here is to dedicate the reserve area to the town, so trails or whatever the town decides to allow in that reserve area would be fine because it would be town's land, so we were fine with that. For the lot area, lots 2 and 3, we did exclude the flag strip, and I'm gonna get a little bit more into that in a second here. We did leave that off on lot 1, so we'll just revise the map to exclude the flag strip from the lot 1 lot area calculations. The water supply and sanitary systems. Health department has, full review on that. We could not place a sanitary system or a well within 150 feet of the opposite component on the neighbor's property. I don't see the need to restrict those to the building envelope because there are some areas outside the building envelope where we would still make the 150 separation. Particularly, if you could pull up the survey quick.
Sure.
On lot 1, it's shown as we have a test well already on the property that the health department required, and the applicant was hoping to be able to reuse that well for the potable drinking water on that property. It would be a cost-saving measure for the applicant. You can see in this corner right here. So it's actually outside of the building envelope, but as you can see, it does meet the 150 separation from the neighbor. And the reason we put it in that corner, unknowing what the future development would be in the rear yard, we just got the well as far away from any potential development in the future as we could. So that would be one concern, is that we would like to be able to keep that well and not have to drill a separate well for the future house on that property. Common driveway and access. The intention here is for one driveway. There are, yes, 3 flag strips going out with a common driveway easement over them. I guess it just wasn't clear that our intention is for one driveway. We can do that with a simple covenant or something where we, only one access point allowed, shared for the 3 lots. Not a problem at all, and that is our intention. We're not looking to put 3 separate driveways in. Turnaround and pull-offs for fire department, not a problem. We can add that. That can be added. Going down the preliminary map requirements, the fire marshal's office is not asking for a hydrant or a fire cistern, so I don't believe we need to add a proposed one to the map. The fire marshal's office did not check that box off either for or against, but I went and checked with them today, and that was a mistake. They were not intending to require any fire suppression added. So,
how far is the nearest hydrant, would you guess?
I don't know. I'd have to get back to you on that. But according to the fire marshal, there's not one needed for this.
Yeah, I didn't see one, and they didn't check it.
Yeah, I went and checked with them today.
Yeah, that's great,
And
great.
that was a mistake on their part, or an error, I guess I should say. Airport noise easement, we're fully happy to, put that as a covenant on the lots. Not a problem at all. It was assumed to be necessary. There's also a comment in here, I don't think Tina addressed it, but it's in writing here about, need for extensive regrading. There will be no need for extensive regrading on the site. The intention is to be able to, we should be able to get any driveway in or anything like that using the natural contours of the land. We're not intending to regrade the property significantly at all.
Okay.
And that is more or less what I have.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, generally I'm supportive of the application. I think the general configuration is good. I would like to declare lead agency for SECRA.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Randy?
He's in.
That's a yes.
He's abstaining, I guess. We'll go without him this time.
I muted myself.
You answered the big question, which was the driveway. Obviously, I think it should be a common driveway, and I'm happy that you agree. I do want to make sure that the fire marshal, the comments that he gave seem to maybe be looking at them as separate driveways. I don't think it would change anything, but I would like to confirm that. Three houses on one driveway, if that changes anything. I just want to make sure. I don't think that it would,
Yeah.
but
I don't think it would, because his comment was about the length of the driveway, and we would still need that same length to get to the third lot, so
Right, but he was talking about separate driveways almost. Oh, anyway, can we just confirm that it doesn't change any of the fire?
Absolutely.
Suppression?
Yep, not a problem.
Stuff. That's the big issue to me. The building envelopes and slopes, it sounds like you're willing to do that. I do have a comment about that generally, which is we create building envelopes largely to avoid steep slopes, which I think is a great idea. But they obviously also mirror current setbacks, which has been a problem recently, where a building envelope was created, came back before, said, oh, they did it only for this reason. It was a little bit unclear. I want to make it very clear that all we're trying to do is exclude steep slopes there. And if anything were to change with setbacks later on, you know, the building envelope would reflect whatever the code dictates, because that's what would determine where we're drawing that line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
It's happened a couple times recently where someone's like, oh, they only did this because, and all we're trying to do is avoid the steep slopes. The applicant, you know, the septic, it seemed like a very reasonable idea to put those in the building envelope, but, you know, I trust if you're going before the health department that they'll do full review, and certainly using a well that already exists makes sense to me. Airport noise easement is important. The other map notations as well. And otherwise, I think the application is looking good.
Anyone else have anything? I have just a small thing to say, which is I think that it's a terrific subdivision because you're saving 70% of the, nearly 70% of the lot.
Thanks, Town Code.
So thank you, Town Code, and thank you, applicants also. I think that it's, you know, if we had 4-acre lots there, which we might otherwise have, then we'd have a lot less preserved land. Also, most of the steep slopes are in the preserved area anyway, so which I guess is good. I'm fine also with the reusing the test well. And as far as the driveways are concerned, that particular part of Wainscott Northwest Road is a windy, curvy, and on a slope piece of road. So you need to be real careful about precisely how you place that driveway and make sure that, because like if you go 50 yards down to South Breeze and you come out at South Breeze, I can tell you, you have to wait and look a couple of times before you make your, particularly making a left. So it's not that much different.
Sure, and that is why we push the driveway access to the northerly end of the property. It is worse as you come south along the property, so it is why we picked the north side to put the driveway. It's also flatter up there, which will give us a less dangerous entryway onto the road, so that is why we push the driveway to that section of the property. I agree with you 100%.
And many a Porsche use this road as a test track.
And many a slow-moving Toyota Tacoma use it as well.
One other note about that, and just a comment, I think be careful of landscaping. I find that some people will landscape the edge of the driveway, making that visibility even worse. And I get what they're trying to do, but you know, make sure there's room to see. Understood.
So, you know, go ahead, Mike.
I would love to see this all acquired by the town, and there's no update for more than what you've said before on this potential acquisition of this, that
Other than they're gonna we'll talk about it one more time.
who are they? The land acquisition?
Land management.
Okay, land management. Okay.
You know, the thing is, when you're getting 70% preserved,
Yeah.
it's a question of value for that additional 30%.
I just drive this road, and my kids go to Sag Harbor schools. I drive this road just about every day, and
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really good acquisition. Be a great acquisition.
It would be, but I'm glad that the eastern portion would still be available for a trail and connect the other places. Yeah.
Well, so it's a lot of preserved areas up there when the town, when the CEF money first came in, there was a lot of acquisitions in this particular part of town.
The trail comment is a good one, though, and I think to Randy's point on an earlier application, we should make sure the language is open enough to allow for it, even if the town owns it, that language has to be in there from the get-go.
Yeah.
So was that deeded to the town? Is that how you did it?
Well, it would be.
It will be deeded to the town once you have reserved, okay.
But there's usually still, I don't know, this is for Nancy, but usually there's still a recorded easement over a reserved area, even if it's dedicated to the town.
Sure, and we would be comfortable with language in that easement allowing for the creation of trails or the connection of trails. So.
What would be the maximum house size that could be built on these lots?
It's whatever the
These are
maximum house size
1.2,
These are big
1.3 acre lots,
So it's
10% plus 1,200 or 1,600 or something?
10% plus 1,600.
So large.
It's not, but it
They have
wouldn't,
big
but
houses on here.
to that point, to that question, it's not nearly as large as it would be if these were 4-acre lots.
Yeah.
If they were 4-acre lots, these would be enormous houses. So in regard to keeping the house size small, this does that. with this, with
So
respect to this.
that's why the reserve is important.
Sure.
Because,
Yeah.
so the reserve is complete, it's
You're taking 70% of the land
out of the
away.
equation.
Exactly, exactly. So instead of having 4-acre lots, you have 1.2, 1.3 acre lots.
Sam,
Yeah, right.
Tina, could you bring up the subdivision map again?
Every time I get the GIS open. Let me just show, because I just want to
Okay.
show all these kind of open forested tracks here where there's
all open
trails
land,
going
right.
through are either county or town owned, right? So this is kind of right across the way from a large preserve, and as you can see, the lot size is not inconsistent with the properties kind of north and south. This over here, much larger lots.
Those are,
right?
what Tina's pointing at, those are 3 4-acre lots that sit in the middle of dozens of, a couple of dozen, of 1-point-something acre lots. So this subdivision is much more consistent with all the smaller lots around. Those 3 others, well, there's 4, but the one of them is on 114, are anomalous in this area.
So we don't have an option. It has to be an open space subdivision.
It
That's
is,
what's
yeah, that's it.
proposed.
So like Ian said before, thank you, town clerk.
Wait. Oh, there you go.
I want to
Thank
run
you.
through the questions if we can, just real.
Wait, Sam,
Go ahead.
so lot 3, can you blow up lot 3 a little bit, Tina?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Never mind, it's an arrow. Well, no, you see, Dave, there's a turquoise line that goes up between lot 2 and 3 that seems to, I don't know if it cuts off the driveway or it's just a scrivener's error.
So the dashed line is the extent of the access, the shared access easement. The solid line would be the boundary line for the flag strip for the flagpole for the different properties. Does that answer your question?
You see the one I mean, though, if you go right
He's
there.
right there, right where Tina's,
That's the end of the access easement. So beyond, that's where the shared access easement would end. Because in all, like, unlikelihood, but it could happen. Lot 2 could bring their driveway all the way to the end of that and then turn like 90 degrees into their property, you know, as a shared access point. That's why the easement extends that far into the property.
Okay. So the other question I had, which I don't know if you can show us like a dotted proposed driveway, because the driveway could conceivably, again, meander inside those different flag strips. Do you have any, would it be difficult to show a sort of proposed driveway?
We can, and actually we need to as one of the requirements for the drainage plan. So yes, we will add one on for the next round.
Okay.
Can I ask you clarifying, you said you intend to have a common driveway, but there's no dimension here and I didn't scale it. How wide is this? Really wide right now, right?
Right, so the easement's 40 feet wide.
Okay.
But the intention would not, we'd have to put a driveway plan in.
Okay, so you'd only have the paved width as required for code, so that's what you should have on there.
Yeah, then that's what will go on the next round. I wanted, before we got to that point, I wanted to make sure that this layout was what we were going with, and I didn't want to create a driveway plan for a layout that wasn't going to kind of pass the mustard.
That makes sense.
So what we want to do now is the next round, we'll show the driveway. I'll add a note to the map about, you know, only one common shared driveway allowed for the 3 lots. And we can, when we get to the point of hopefully approvals, we have no problem covenanting that, you know, putting a covenant on properties that only one access can be allowed.
Okay, let's run through the questions and then we can wrap this one up. So we've done secret. Does the revised yield map provide 10% reserve area acceptable?
Yes.
Yes. Does the planning board find proposed preliminary map acceptable with respect to lot layout size and configuration of reserved area?
Yes.
Should the building envelopes be shown on the preliminary and final maps to ensure the areas of 20% or more greater slopes are protected from disturbance?
Yes.
Should the application?
Sam, right there, just a sec there. So if the board wants to allow them to put the well outside the building envelope, I think that has to be written in somewhere.
We'll add that.
I think that Randy's right.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll add that when we get to the end. We'll
Okay.
make that a comment on the letter, okay? Okay. Should the applicant update the map to provide clarity on who will manage the reserve area?
They have,
Yes, they've done that. Okay, does the planning board think allowance for future trails in the reserve area would be appropriate? And I think that's yes. Should the applicant consider a common driveway for access or providing the supporting reasons why having 3 driveways is a superior design? I think we've obviated that question. Should the applicant address the items needed for preliminary map content as noted above? That's a yes. Should the applicant add the requirement for airport noise easements to each of the proposed lots and record such an easement on the properties?
Yes.
That's yes all around.
What is that, by the way?
That's in case they
says you can't
don't
complain if it's
realize
too loud.
that,
That's what it
in case they haven't driven down Northwest Road and
See all the
noticed
jets.
there's an airport there.
Gotcha, all right, so that's all it is.
That's what that's for.
There were 10
It's kind
jets
of a
parked there
waiver
today.
thing.
Got it.
Yeah, and should the applicant comply with the fire, I mean, I hate to sound cynical, but, should the applicant, it is necessary, it is. I
You can
get it.
still complain, though.
Yeah, you can complain, yes, you
Call
can
in.
complain.
Call in.
There's nothing says you can't complain, you're just saying you
Call in.
bought knowing it. Should the applicant comply with the fire marshal's comments, and I don't think anyone's gonna say no on that. And we'll add a comment about the, test, using the test well again, all right?
Sam, did we, on the fire, the question about, Ian's question about the fire marshal, the switch between the flags and common driveway, but didn't we get something about a turnaround or a turnoff or a T?
Yeah, we did, Randy, and I think that they've agreed to comply with that.
Okay.
So,
The fire marshal will review every submission, so.
Yeah, yeah.
When he'll, we'll bring those comments.
that's his.
Will be checked.
Okay, we're good on that? On that comment, that fire marshal issue?
He's gonna review the.
Yeah, he has to look at it again anyway, so, and make sure that is it a turnaround? You're gonna do a turnaround there?
The turn off.
It's a
Turn
turn
off, right, just cut in, cut out.
And they asked for a turnaround at the end, I think, too. Yeah. There'll be a turnaround in lot 3 and there'll be a turn off somewhere in the middle somewhere.
And that'll be deeded.
Would you like the back of
It'll
fire?
fit in the access. We shouldn't need a deed for it. We shouldn't need to, because we have a 40-foot wide access easement that we're only gonna put in, forget what it is. I think it's a 16-foot wide driveway or something, a 14-foot wide driveway. So we've got plenty of room to fit the turnoff within that 40 feet that we already accounted for.
As long as you can get a fire truck down there.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it, appreciate the everything. Okay. All right, folks, we're gonna move into regular meeting. Michael, Monroe Osborne.
In the matter of the application of Monroe Osborne minor subdivision, SCTM number 300-93-2-7.2, the resolution amending approval. I've read the resolution amending approval, and I move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Recused.
Oh, okay, thank you. 5-0 to recusals. Next is the 404 Montauk Highway. Randy, that's yours, 404 Montauk Highway.
Somebody want to read it?
Want me to do it
or-
for you?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. In the matter of the application of 404 Montauk Highway Site Plan, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-189-1-6.1, for a minor site plan approval. I have read the findings and determination of the board, and I move for their adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0, passed. Next is the cookery. Ian.
In the matter of the Cookery Sin and Trudy site plan for resolution amending approval, I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed, 7-0. Finally, Lou, Flamingo Business Offices.
In the matter of the application of Flamingo Business Offices, Bustamante, site plan, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-16-2-25. I have read the resolution for the extension of time, and I move for its approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0 passed. All right, we have nothing next week, correct? We have nothing the following week, correct?
Is that right?
That's a yes, there's no meeting.
Labor Day.
Labor Day, we don't meet on Labor Day week. And that means we'll be back here on the 12th, 13th, thank you.
I'll miss you guys.
We'll see you all on the
3
13th.
weeks.
You'll be here?
See you in 3 weeks.
All right, everybody have a great
We're gonna
rest
have to
of your
Zoom that
summer.
one.
This is the last you're going to see of this jacket.
By the time we're here, it's the 3rd week.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
Yes, 7-0.